It's 2025. How do you protect your family or your property with a PDW? The Sig AXG Flux Legion is for you.
Can you hear me? Tell me, can you hear me? I've been calling out for help, still don't see nobody near me. I'm down and almost underground and so deep in the valley, I can't even tell you which way is the mountain. God, the only word I got, I could probably plant a garden, all the dirt I got. Trail of broken hearts behind me from the hurt I felt. Time I really start to wonder if I deserve my spot, 'cause I'm just a man who's got...
Over the last couple of years, we've seen this boom in the PDW market. Now, what does PDW mean if you don't know what it means? It means personal defense weapon. Why do you need, or why should somebody want a personal defense weapon? And we'll answer that while we review the all-new 320 AXG Flux Legion. So with this here, you see obviously it has a brace that expands out. This is a brace and not a stock. And up here on the front, most importantly, and one of the coolest features of this whole system from Flux is the fact that the magazine release up on your front magwell here is actually also a release for the rear magazine. So if you come up underneath the gun and you hit this button on here with your thumb, you see it actually drops both magazines. Now, of course, you would want to grab this one. So like, let's say here in reality, so you hit the button, release the magazine, go right up into your reload. And then like a standard AXG Legion, it does have ambi slide, stop, slide releases on it, or you can come over the top and release the slide manually. Now, what I'll tell you is that some folks will probably look at this and say, why don't I just use an AR-15, like a 10.5 inch, 300 blackout, a 9mm subgun, something like that? Well, of course, you can use all of those things. But please tell me and show me where you have a design that is this small and this compact. So like, let's put this size in consideration. This gun's completely empty. I never have live ammo on me. So like, let's say here with my vest, you know, because vests are all the rage nowadays. So let's say like with my vest, and I wear this thing, let's say you're doing an executive protection detail and you're wearing a sport coat or you're wearing something like this. Now, although I'm not wearing this with a sling, so that would actually help concealment, you see it's not that bulky. And if you were to run this down with like 17 round mags or 21 round mags, if you want to just have smaller mags and then backup mags on you, you could. So you see it's still very concealable. The chances are, unless you get like an MP5K, you're not going to be able to do that. And this is pretty darn similar to that while coming in at a price range that's considerably less. So if you're not familiar with like the Flux design in general, or like the Flux Raider, like this one being the pistol version of it, so therefore it just has a brace, it's a small compact design like a chassis that ultimately you could set your 320 fire control unit into and then get a slide for. Now this model comes directly like this from Sig. So it's obviously branded with the Legion stuff, and then it has the AXG Legion slide. We did review the Sig AXG Legion, very, very flat shooting pistol, and one of my most favorite, if not my favorite, 320 variant out there. But before we talk about some of that stuff, I want to cover a couple items of note that everybody should be aware of if you go to get something like this. So let's start with the brace. When deploying the brace, there's a lever here on the right side of the gun. And when you hit that button, make sure it's clear. So like if you have the pistol or the weapon system like this and you stop it, it's not going to extend all the way and it won't lock into place. Then when you close it though, I actually just did it and I want to make sure people are aware. Watch where your fingers go because we don't want to jam our fingers in there. So you can actually hit that down, it unlocks, okay? And then these two rods, they slide all the way forward and it spring locks into place. But with that being said, you'll notice it's a very, very sturdy and rugged system. Two other things that I think are neat to notice as well. With this brace system and how it actually works, and so we'll deploy it, is that when I come out and I get into the weapon system, the optic height with this new Vortex Crossfire Green Dot, which this is all new from them. You can check those out. We're gonna run it a bunch today. It's a very crisp dot for somebody like myself who has a slight astigmatism in my right eye. I don't have any issues with this. Now, generally speaking for myself, most red dots, if I get that brightness just right, I don't have any issues. But this being a green dot is very easy for some folks that have worse astigmatisms than myself. But with this pistol brace, I can actually look down and I can still use the iron sights underneath the red dot itself. This has a pick rail. You know, I think before this, Andrew tried mounting a Holocent AEMS. It went on there, no issues, and that worked out really, really well. You have good grip textures here on the actual pistol grip itself. And there's actually a safety on here, which is a little bit different. And something that, let's say you're wearing this in concealment for like EPU type detail or executive protection, or you're putting it in like a bag or whatever it might be, the safety is actually a nice feature. It kind of adds to that PDW style weapon. But even then, you can leave it off if you wanted to, because it still has a standard 320 system. Now, I'd recommend just leaving it on if you're using it for those purposes, but overall, it's very easy to do, and it does actually block the trigger on like a 320. So for those folks who think your 320 is going to go off because it doesn't have a safety, well, now you do. Okay, so let's not complain. Sorry about that tangent, just had to throw that out there. Anywho, trigger stuff is similar and exactly what you would expect from a 320. So it has that little bit of a spongy trigger and all that stuff, not any different. The grip textures though on the back and how it's actually flared here on the bottom is really nice for your magazine. So obviously with this Flux brace system on here for the speed load system, as they've dubbed it, you have the button that will drop both magazines at once. In addition to that, on the left side of the gun, like where a thumb release would be for a magazine release, you push it forward and it will drop both the magazines again. And then, similar like what you'll find on most PDWs or your AR, you have a button here that will release just the rear magazine. So if you wanted to, let's say, leave that magazine up there, you know it's fully loaded, do attack reload, come up, put a different mag in there, you could certainly do that. In addition to that, you'll notice, or if you can see it, the bottom of the grip itself, I can get a full grip, and it's also beveled out and it has like a mag well on it. So good stuff there. Up here in the front, you'll notice that there's a small pick rail, so you can mount a weapon light up there if you want to. And then it has these guards for the front of the slide. Now we're gonna talk about that because with this thing here, if you're somebody like myself who shot, let's say all your PDWs, your ARs, your MP5K, whatever it might be, and a lot of times you come over and you do a C-clamp, you most definitely cannot do that with this weapon system. You do that, one, you're gonna stop the slide operation, and even worse yet, if you come up over top and you put your hand on top of the ports, it doesn't take an idiot to figure out what's gonna happen then. Now, that's something, of course, to make note of, and you're shooting these, safety is paramount, and to understand how that works. So, keep that in mind whenever you shoot these. With this being said, is that you can get this whole system for around 1,500 bucks. That doesn't include the optic itself, but you can get this whole system. And then let's say that you want a different slide on here. So maybe you don't want a ported one like you have with the AXG. You can simply change out the slide and put whatever 320 slide you want on there. So if you need to get a longer one, you want to put a suppressor on here with a threaded barrel, you can certainly do that as well. All that stuff and how this thing fit in the finish is fantastic. It does have some QD sockets on here on the left side of the pistol brace and chassis itself. So if you want to run a single point sling, like you're using it for like an EPU type protection or something like that, you certainly could. I think what this allows you to do, let's say I could speak from a little bit of experience. My last 2 years as a trooper, I worked as a plainclothes investigator. So actually all we carried was like a pistol and a couple mags, handcuffs, whatever it might be, small radio, depending on the detail. Our job was to protect dignitaries. So like the governor, lieutenant governor, senators, the president came, presidential cabinet members came, those type of people we protected along with their own protection details. Well, all we carried, generally speaking, when we went in those places was just a pistol. Something like this gives you a little bit more of an effective weapon system for countering more than one threat and making shots. Let's say maybe you want a larger red dot, you zero this thing at 25 yards, you zero it at 50 yards, whatever it might be, and it grants you a little bit more precision if you had to use it. In addition to that, on my 320, like I was carrying for stuff like that in my CNG holster, I didn't carry 30 round magazines. They were just standard 17 rounds. That's all I could really get away with when I was wearing a suit jacket, and that's what I concealed. But you could easily carry this like in my laptop bag. You could carry this underneath your sport coat in worst case scenario if you were planned or you had threats on the horizon, something like that, in your ops plan. It's things that you can certainly take in consideration. And the Flux system itself, if you guys aren't familiar with the Flux Raider, this was developed for SOCOM. So this is something, that was actually developed for military use, and it's really, really well done. Now I want to get out on the range, I want to shoot this thing, and I want to kind of determine how much better or easier it feels to operate and shoot with at speed, at distance, whatever it might be, versus just like a standard 320. But above all of that stuff, this is one freaking cool system, and I highly recommend it based off looks alone. So let's get out on the range and we'll shoot it. Let's get those first shots out of our AXG Flux Legion. That is very, very easy to shoot. I will say that. It's different than shooting like a handgun just because you got the 2 points of contact and how there are 3 points ultimately. Especially like if you had one with a full-blown stock and everything on there, it'd probably be even better. It's very easy to double tap with this. I tell you what, if it ain't practical, this is sure as shit fun. The way it feels and like compactness and all that stuff, it does feel very practical. Like if you had to use something like this inside your home, I mean, you see how tight it is on me and it's easy to shoot and you're able to get nice and in. I mean, and like, let's say if you're clearing rooms in your house or whatever it is, and like with this thing, as close as it is, you wouldn't really be doing any breaking down your weapon system as you come through a threshold or something like that. It's so close, you'd have a good grip. You know, if you had to come in real close, you obviously could, but for as tight as this thing is, I mean, it's far tighter than what you would get any like AR platform rifle. So let's load up a few more mags, keep shooting this thing. We're gonna run back at some distance and shoot it to show you guys really where this could shine as far as for improving upon a pistol platform. One thing to probably make note of that's a little bit different from what you're used to with like a pistol or like, let's say the AXG Legion, is I can't really come up and get that slide stop, slide release with my dominant hand. And I think that when I do it here, I think it'll actually be easier to come up, reload and hit it down with my support hand. Or you can come across and obviously, you know, release the slide from pulling it to the rear. We're at 50 yards now, so we're gonna shoot some steel. So what I've found is shooting here at 50 yards, especially when I actually, let's say I probably got just my dotted touch to really get it more zeroed. At 50 yards, you're starting to really push the 9mm, and your ability to make good, accurate shots that you can be accountable for, you're getting, you know, to its max. And really at this distance too, you have to consider is that if you can evade and escape, if that's your ultimate option, this is self-defense, you're getting there. But I'll tell you, the safety-wise on here, you know, of course it has one. I'm not a fan of it. I think it's hard to get, and it just seems different. You know, I think it's something to get used to. It's a neat system for sure. I think it definitely adds something to the standard pistol platform, and it's very controllable and easy to shoot. What I want to do is continue to shoot at this and see how ultimately like transition between targets. I'd probably say, you know, let's say if we're talking about what would be most beneficial. Of course, if it was a little bit longer. So like for me, this is just a touch on the tight side. You've probably seen it a couple times where my hat brim actually hits the bottom of the optic. But overall, for keeping that compact nature of it and providing a good PDW style weapon, it certainly accomplishes that without issue. I think it does all that stuff really, really well, and it's very easy to shoot. Well, that's it. Very, very capable weapon system to shoot. It's very easy to shoot. It's not hard whatsoever. And especially once you start getting used to like the manual of arms, like whether it's reloading or, you know, understanding about the safety on here. I had a couple hang-ups, which we could show you, where I was like, oh, pull the trigger, because I'm so used to like the Sig trigger and not having a safety. And of course it didn't go bang. But, you know, with this, you know, I found myself instinctually putting it back on. If I could just remember, you know, training with this more to turn it off, it's very, very easy to shoot. I find, you know, like bill drill wise and from like a low ready, it is not hard to really be quick with this thing. It's very effective and you can be really, really darn accurate. And this thing set up with this green crossfire dot from Vortex is perfect for it. Overall, I mean, it's lightweight, it's compact, it's slim, it's not hard to like pack. You could easily fit this in a backpack or a briefcase bag, something like that. I mean, shit, it's so small. You could literally stick this like in the pocket of the back of your seat on your truck or whatever it might be and have it back there, lock it up, you know, of course, keep it safe. But really the system itself is so darn small and easy to really pack in places. And on top of it, it's been 100% reliable. Now my standard 320 AXG Legion has been 100% reliable, so I expect this to be, but really it just runs really, really well. It's simple to shoot. You know, I would say, you know, let's say a couple drawbacks if I had to give them. One is of course hitting the slide stop slide release. If there was some way for them to incorporate an easier way to do that, you know, I would probably appreciate it. But using your support hand, I feel for me, is the easiest way to release that slide on a loaded magazine. You know, doing the reloads is not bad. You know, I had one time where the mag didn't want to come out. Now it's wet. They're soaking wet today. It's been raining now for the last hour. But overall, the system itself, I certainly can objectively say, you know, with a good objective opinion, that this thing certainly has a purpose. I think, you know, especially for somebody who isn't the best at shooting handguns or just feels like they want that extra point of contact, this really does add an aspect to it. I found shooting it at 50 yards is a little bit easier to make follow-up shots than with a pistol. I think it has a lot of purposes. I think for like an EPU or executive protection type deal, or you know, maybe Secret Service or whoever, I think it has a purpose for those types of roles. And really, you know, in general, I think the Flux Raider brace or stock system that they also have really is a sweet setup. And I look forward to, you know, this is Andrew's, and I think I'm gonna build myself something similar because I really enjoy it. And it's just something a little bit different. And like I said before, even if this doesn't have a purpose, because guys, it's okay to own guns and not have a purpose for them. They don't have to be all tactical timmied out. Okay, you can have a gun and it just be nothing more than a range toy for you. So if that's all this thing is, it's a hell of a lot of fun to shoot. It functions great, shoots great, and I highly recommend it. I think it's worth every single penny. If you guys disagree, or you think there's a better option, or if you see a PDW out there in the market you want us to try that's not an MP5, let us know, and we'll go out there, we'll try our best to try and, you know, review something else for you guys. But until next time, follow along with Hunt, Fish, Shoot.